Picture this. You're alone, driving down a deserted highway at 3 a.m. The world is silent, save for the low hum of your engine and the rhythmic thump of tires on cracked asphalt. Your headlights slice through the darkness, but they flicker, just for a heartbeat. You glance in the rearview mirror, and something moves, something that shouldn't be there. Your breath catches in your throat. Your heart pounds so hard it hurts. You tell yourself it's nothing, a trick of the light, but deep down, you know it's not. These aren't Hollywood horror flicks. These are real stories, terrifying, true accounts from ordinary people who face the unexplainable on highways, just like the ones you drive every day. Welcome to 5 scary true highway horror stories that will haunt you forever. These aren't just spooky tales to whisper around a campfire. They're real, documented events that happen to real people, leaving them shaken, terrified, and forever changed. From ghostly hitchhikers who vanish into thin air to roads that seem to hunger for travelers, these accounts will crawl under your skin and stay there, whispering in the back of your mind every time you get behind the wheel. For the next 4 hours, we're diving deep into the nightmares that haunt America's highways, exploring every chilling detail, every heart-stopping moment, every unanswered question. This isn't just a video, it's an experience, a descent into the unknown that'll make you question what's really out there in the dark. So, grab a blanket, turn off every light, plug in your headphones, and brace yourself for a ride you'll never forget. Before we start, do me a favor. Hit that like button, smash subscribe, and ring the bell to join our community of thrill seekers. Trust me, you'll want to stay updated for more nightmares like these. Ready to face the terror? Let's hit the road. Story 1. The Phantom Passenger. Our journey begins on Route 66, the legendary Mother Road that once carried dreamers, drifters, and families across America's heartland, from Chicago to Santa Monica. In its heyday, it was a lifeline of neon signs, bustling diners, and roadside motels. But today, it's a ghost of its former self, a haunted ribbon of asphalt winding through ghost towns, abandoned gas stations, and forgotten places where the past refuses to die. In October 2018, David Miller, a delivery driver from Tulsa, Oklahoma, was making his way home after a brutal 12-hour shift hauling freight across state lines. He was bone-tired, his eyes burning from staring at the road, his hands cramped from gripping the wheel. The night was cold, the fog so dense it swallowed his headlights, reducing the world to a gray, suffocating haze. His only companions were the drone of his truck's engine and the occasional chatter of truckers on the CB radio, their voices fading in and out like ghosts. But at 2:17 a.m., on a lonely stretch of Route 66 near the Oklahoma-Texas border, the road revealed something David would never forget, something that would shatter his sense of reality and haunt him for the rest of his life. She appeared out of nowhere, standing by the edge of the highway, her silhouette barely visible through the fog's oppressive veil. David slowed his truck, his foot hovering over the brake, his heart thumping in his chest. Every instinct screamed to keep driving, to ignore her, to flee. But she looked helpless, stranded, vulnerable. Maybe her car broke down, he thought. Or maybe she was running from something. Or someone. He'd heard stories of drivers picking up hitchhikers, tales of good Samaritans saving lives and cautionary nightmares of those who never made it home. But he couldn't just leave her there. Not in the middle of nowhere, not at 2 a.m. on a road where help might never come. He rolled down his window, the cold air biting his face, carrying a faint, sour smell, like damp earth and decay. "Hey ma'am, you okay?" he called, his voice trembling slightly. "Need a ride somewhere?" His words echoed, swallowed by the fog, unanswered. The woman didn't move. Her head tilted slightly, an unnatural, jerky motion, like she was listening, or studying him, sizing him up. David's stomach churned, a primal fear clawing at his gut, urging him to flee. He called out again, louder, his voice cracking with desperation. "Ma'am, I can't stay here. You need help or not?" Still silence. The fog seemed to thicken, pressing against the truck, muffling the world until the only sounds were his ragged breathing and the pounding of his heart. Then, slowly, the woman turned toward him. Her hair parted, revealing her face, and David's blood ran cold. It wasn't a face, not really. Her eyes were hollow, black voids, like tunnels burrowing into an endless abyss. Her mouth stretched into a grin, unnaturally wide, splitting her cheeks until they seemed to tear, revealing rows of sharp, uneven teeth that glinted in the headlights, dripping with something dark and viscous. Her skin was gray, stretched tight, over a skull that looked wrong, like it was decaying from the inside, patches of flesh peeling away to reveal bone beneath. David froze, his heart pounding so hard he thought it would burst. His hands shook, fumbling with the gear shift, slick with sweat, as his mind screamed one word: run. He slammed his foot on the gas, the truck roaring as it lurched forward, tires screeching on the wet asphalt. The fog swallowed the woman's figure, her silhouette fading into the gray haze. But David didn't dare look back, his eyes locked on the road, his knuckles white on the wheel. The CB radio crackled to life on its own, spitting static mixed with a guttural, inhuman voice, whispering his name, David! David! The sound was wet, rasping, like it came from a throat choked with dirt. He yanked the radio's cord, silencing it, but the whisper lingered, echoing in his skull, burrowing into his thoughts. He prayed, muttering half-remembered, words from childhood Sunday school, begging for the nightmare to end. But then he glanced in the rearview mirror, and his scream tore through the cab, raw and primal. She was there, sitting in his truck staring at him. Her mouth moved, forming words he couldn't hear, but the air grew thick, heavy with the stench of rot, damp earth, spoiled meat, and something sour, like bile rising in his throat. The temperature in the cab plummeted, his breath fogging as frost crept across the windows, forming jagged patterns like claw marks. David screamed, swerving across the highway, the truck fishtailing on the slick road, its tires screeching in protest. The woman's presence was suffocating, like she was draining the life from him, pulling at his soul with invisible hands. Her nails scraped the back of his seat, the sound like knives carving bone, and he felt a cold, burning pain across his shoulder, as if she'd touched him, her claws sinking into his flesh. David doesn't know how he survived that night. He drove for hours, sobbing, praying, his hands trembling so badly he could barely steer. The fog clung to the truck, as if trying to hold him back, its tendrils curling around the mirrors, obscuring the road. But as the first rays of dawn broke through, painting the sky a sickly pink, the fog lifted, revealing an empty highway stretching into the distance. He pulled into a gas station, his shirt soaked with sweat, his shoulder burning where she'd touched him, the pain sharp and unnatural. The back seat was empty, no trace of her, no dirt, no marks. But the smell of decay lingered, so strong he gagged, and he found scratches on the interior of the passenger door. Deep, jagged gashes that hadn't been there before, as if clawed by something with inhuman strength. Under the seat, tucked, in a corner, he found something else. A single blackened fingernail, curved and sharp, like it had been torn from something not human. It smelled of rot, and when he touched it, his fingers burned, leaving red welts that wouldn't heal for weeks. The gas station clerk, an old man with weathered skin and eyes that had seen too much, listened to David's story and went pale, his hands trembling as he poured coffee. "You saw her," he said, his voice barely a whisper, as if afraid she'd hear. "The phantom passenger. Her name was Eleanor, or so they say. Died in a crash on Route 66 in 1953. Burned alive when her car went off the road, They never found all of her. Pieces were missing, like something took them. He shuffled to a drawer and pulled out a faded newspaper clipping from the Tulsa World, dated November 12, 1953. The headline read, "Fiery Crash Claims Young Woman." On Route 66. The article described a horrific accident. Eleanor Hayes, 24, driving alone, lost control on a sharp curve. Her car plunged into a ditch, bursting into flames so intense it melted the guardrail. The photo showed a mangled wreck, its frame charred black, and a grainy portrait of Eleanor, smiling in a white dress, her eyes bright with life. David swore it was her. The same dress, the same smile, twisted into that monstrous grin. David's life unraveled after that night. He quit his job as a driver, unable to stomach the thought of another night on the road. He sold his truck, though the buyer complained of a lingering smell and strange scratches appearing overnight. David moved to Oklahoma City, trading the open highway for crowded streets, refusing to travel rural roads. He saw a doctor for the pain in his shoulder, where a faint, claw-like scar had formed, red and inflamed, as if infected by something unnatural. The doctor found no explanation, prescribing antibiotics that did nothing. David burned sage, hung crosses in his apartment, and slept with the lights on, but he says he still feels her presence. A cold chill that wakes him at 2:17 a.m., a whisper, in the dark, calling him back to Route 66. He keeps the blackened fingernail in a locked box, unable to throw it away, as if it binds him to her. Locals along Route 66 know the stories. They speak of Eleanor in hushed tones, a spirit tied to the highway, trapped in the moment of her fiery death, forever seeking someone to share her endless journey. Drivers report seeing a woman in white, standing by the road, her face hidden by hair, her presence chilling the air. Some say she's lonely, searching for company. Others say she's angry, claiming those who stop as her own. If you're ever on Route 66 at night and you see a woman in white, don't slow down. Don't roll down your window. Don't look back. Just drive and pray she doesn't follow you home. That story sends shivers down my spine every time I tell it, and I've told it 100 times. Have you ever seen a hitchhiker who didn't seem human? Maybe a figure on the road that vanished when you looked again? Drop your story in the comments below. We want to hear every chilling detail, every moment that made your heart race. And if you're loving this deep dive into terror, give this video a huge thumbs up and share it with your friends. We're just getting started, and story number 2 is going to crank the fear up to 11. Grab a snack, get comfy, and let's keep rolling into the dark. Story 2. The Vanishing Car. Second story takes us to Route 50, a desolate stretch of pavement in Nevada known as the loneliest road in America. It's a place where the horizon never seems to get closer, where cell signals die, and where the silence is so heavy it feels like a living thing. Watching. Waiting. In July 2020, Sarah Thompson and Jake Rivera, a newly engaged couple from Reno, were on a road trip to celebrate their future. They'd spent months planning it, mapping out scenic routes, picking campsites where they'd sleep under the stars and dream of their wedding. Route 50 was just a shortcut, a way to shave a few hours off their drive to Great Basin National Park. They expected solitude, maybe a few quirky roadside attractions. What they encountered instead wasn't on any map, and it would haunt them for the rest of their lives, turning their dream trip into a nightmare they couldn't wake from. It started with headlights, faint at first, like distant stars on the endless desert horizon. Sarah noticed them while fiddling with the radio, trying to find a station that wasn't just static. "Another car out here?" she said, her voice tinged with surprise. Route 50 was notorious for its emptiness. Hours could pass without seeing. Another vehicle. Just you and the vast, unforgiving desert. Jake shrugged, his eyes on the road, his hands steady on the wheel. "Probably a trucker," he said. or some local heading home. Nothing to worry about. But the headlights grew. Brighter, closer, faster than they should have, eating up the distance between them. Within minutes, the sedan was tailgating them, its bumper inches from their SUV, its engine roaring with a low, aggressive growl that vibrated through the seats, rattling the water bottle on the floor. Jake slowed down, waving his arm out the window for the car to pass, his jaw clenched with irritation. "Come on, buddy, go around," he muttered. But the sedan didn't pass. It stayed glued to their tail, matching their speed, its headlights flooding their mirrors with blinding white light that burned their eyes. Sarah's stomach twisted, a knot of fear tightening in her chest. "What do they want, Jake?" she whispered, her voice trembling, her hands clutching the armrest. Jake tried to stay calm, his knuckles whitening on the wheel, but the sedan started flashing its high beams, on, off, in a deliberate, taunting rhythm, like a signal, a message they couldn't decipher. The light pulsed, relentless, making it hard to see the road, casting eerie shadows that danced across the dashboard. Sarah grabbed her phone, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped it. But the screen showed no bars, no signal, no help, just the two of them, and the thing behind them. Jake pushed the SUV to 85 miles an hour, the desert blurring past, the speedometer climbing to 90, then 95, the engine straining with a high-pitched whine. The road vibrated under their tires, the asphalt cracked and uneven, threatening to send them skidding. Sarah clung to the armrest, her nails digging into the fabric, her heart racing so fast she felt dizzy. The sedan kept pace, its roar growing. Louder, closer, like a beast closing in on its prey, its headlights never wavering. Jake weaved across the empty highway, hoping to shake it, crossing the faded yellow line. But the car mirrored every move, never falling behind, never pulling ahead, as if tethered to them by an invisible chain. Sarah swears she saw something inside it. A shape, not human, shifting in the driver's seat, its outline flickering like a flame, its limbs too long, its head tilting at an unnatural angle, like it was watching her, studying her fear. For 3.5 hours, the sedan chased them through the desert, an endless, torturous pursuit that felt like a nightmare with no end. It never passed, never stopped, never slowed, its presence a constant, oppressive weight. Jake tried pulling onto the shoulder, kicking up clouds of dust, but the sedan blocked their path, its headlights flooding the SUV with blinding light, its engine roaring like a threat. Sarah sobbed, clutching Jake's arm, begging him to make it stop, her voice breaking with terror. "It's not a car, Jake," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the shape in the sedan's window. "It's not human." Jake's hands shook, his voice hoarse as he tried to reassure her, but his own fear was palpable, his eyes darting to the fuel gauge, which was dipping dangerously low. They were running out of time, out of road, out of hope. Then, as they crested a hill, the headlights vanished. The road behind them was empty. No car, no sound, just the endless desert stretching into the dark, bathed in the blood-red glow of the dying sun. Jake slammed on the brakes, the SUV skidding to a stop, gravel crunching under the tires. They sat in silence, panting, staring at the empty highway, their hearts pounding in unison. Sarah checked the mirrors, half expecting the sedan to reappear, but there was nothing, just the desert, silent and vast, its shadows deeper now, as if hiding something. Jake's voice was barely a whisper. "It's gone," he said, but neither of them believed it. The air felt wrong, heavy, like the calm before a storm, and the desert seemed to watch them, its silence louder than the sedan's roar. They drove in silence until they reached a gas station an hour later, a flickering neon sign reading, "Last. Chance fuel the only light for miles." Their hands were still shaking, their faces drained of color. The attendant, an old man with leathery skin and sunken eyes that seemed to see through them, listened to their story, and nodded slowly, as if he'd heard it before. "You're lucky," he said, his voice gravelly, his fingers tracing a scar on his hand. "That car's been seen on Route 50 for decades. It's not real, not in the way you think. It hunts drivers, plays with them, feeds on their fear, then vanishes. Some who see it never make it to the next town." He pointed to a wall covered in faded missing persons flyers, their faces staring blankly, their eyes seeming to follow Sarah and Jake as they backed away. Sarah and Jake haven't driven at night since. They canceled their camping trip, sold the SUV, and moved to a coastal city in California, far from the desert's oppressive silence. But the memory of that night lingers, a wound that won't heal. Sarah says she still hears the sedan's engine, in her dreams, its high beams clicking on and off. And sometimes when she's alone, she feels watched, as if the shape from the car followed them. Jake developed a nervous tic, his eyes darting to mirrors even when he's not driving. And he keeps a flashlight by his bed, unable to sleep in total darkness. They found scratches on the SUV's bumper when they sold it, faint but deep, like claw marks, and the buyer complained of a strange hum coming from the engine, even when it was off. Route 50 remains, silent and waiting, its secrets buried in the sand, its shadows deeper than they should be. Locals speak of the black sedan in whispers, a phantom that hunts the lonely, a predator that feeds on fear. Some say it's the spirit of a driver who died on the road, others a manifestation of the desert itself, hungry for those who dare to cross it. If you're ever on Route 50 at dusk and you see headlights in your mirror, don't slow down. Don't stop. Just drive, and pray they don't follow you into the dark. That one's hard to shake, isn't it? Have you ever been followed by a car that didn't seem normal? Maybe headlights that appeared out of nowhere, or a vehicle that vanished when you looked again? Share your story in the comments. We're building a community of people who've faced the unknown, and we want to hear from you. If you're still with us, you're braver than most. Give this video a like, hit subscribe, and let's dive into Story 3. It's a nightmare that'll make your skin crawl. Story 3. The Screaming Bridge. Our third story takes us to a forgotten corner of Ohio, where County Road 13 winds through dense woods and past a bridge locals call the Screaming Bridge. Its official name is long gone, erased by a tragedy that still lingers like a stain. In June 2015, 3 high school friends, Emma Carter, Tyler Hayes, and Mia Lopez, decided to test the local legend, a rite of passage for teens in their small town. The story goes that in 1974, a family of 4, parents John and Mary Reynolds and their kids Tommy and Sarah, died when their car plunged off the bridge, bursting into flames so intense it melted the steel beams. If you cross at midnight, the legend says, you'll hear their screams, trapped in the moment of their death. And if you're unlucky, you'll see what's left of them, still burning, still screaming, forever bound to the bridge. They reached the bridge at 11:55 p.m., the air thick with the smell of damp wood, rust, and something acrid, like burnt rubber. The woods were silent, unnaturally so, the usual chirps of crickets and rustle of leaves absent, as if the forest was holding its breath. Tyler turned off the radio, plunging the car into silence, his bravado faltering. "This is stupid," he said, his voice cracking. "It's just a dumb story to scare kids." Emma clutched her rosary tighter, her eyes scanning the darkness beyond the headlights. Mia's phone light cast eerie shadows, her laughter forced, her hands shaking. As they drove onto the bridge, the atmosphere shifted, the air growing heavy, oppressive, like a storm was brewing. Their headlights dimmed, flickering like dying candles, and the car's engine sputtered, a low, coughing sound that made them freeze. Then they heard it. Screams. Dozens of them, piercing and agonized, like people burning alive, their voices overlapping, echoing from the river below, from the trees, from the air itself. The screams were raw, guttural, filled with pain and terror, a chorus of suffering that vibrated in their chests. Emma screamed, dropping her rosary, her hands covering her ears. Mia's phone glitched, the screen freezing on a distorted image of the bridge, the graffiti glowing unnaturally. Tyler floored the gas, his face pale, but the car wouldn't move, its tires spinning uselessly, as if something was holding them there, pinning them to the bridge's rusted frame, refusing to let them go. Mia swears she saw faces, burned, eyeless, their skin sloughing off in flakes, their mouths stretched in endless screams. They clawed at the windows, their nails screeching against the glass, a sound like metal on metal, sharp enough to make their ears ring. Emma sobbed, reciting prayers, her voice breaking, her hands trembling as she reached for the rosary on the floor. Tyler pounded the steering wheel, screaming for the car to move, his voice hoarse, his eyes wide with terror. The screams grew, louder, closer, until it felt like they were inside the car, vibrating in their skulls, drowning out their thoughts. The temperature plummeted, frost creeping across the windshield, forming jagged patterns like claw marks, the air so cold it burned their lungs. Somehow, the car lurched forward, breaking free with a jolt that threw them against their seats. They sped off the bridge, tires screeching, the screams fading but never stopping, echoing in their minds. They didn't stop until they reached town, pulling into a 24-hour diner, their faces pale, their eyes bloodshot, their hands shaking so badly they couldn't hold the coffee the waitress brought. They found deep scratches on the car's hood, claw-like marks that hadn't been there before, so deep they cut through the paint to the metal. Mia's phone footage was corrupted, the video unplayable, but one frame survived, a blurry image of a burned face, its mouth open in a scream, staring directly into the camera, its eyes black voids. The next day, they learned the family's car had burned so intensely it melted the bridge's steel beams, a fire so unnatural investigators couldn't explain it. Locals avoid the bridge, warning that the Reynolds family is trapped, reliving their deaths every night, their screams a warning and a curse for anyone who crosses at midnight. Emma, Tyler, and Mia graduated high school, but they never spoke of that night again, their friendship fractured by the trauma. They sold the car, deleted the footage, and avoid County Road 13, refusing to drive at night. Emma wears her rosary constantly, her faith deepened but shaken, her sleep plagued by nightmares of burning faces. Tyler moved to Cleveland, taking city buses, his bravado replaced by a quiet fear of bridges. Mia, once the group's jokester, stopped filming, her phone untouched, her laughter gone. They say the screams still haunt them, waking them at midnight, and Tyler swears he sees burned figures in his rearview mirror, their hands reaching for him. The screaming bridge still stands, its rusted frame a warning, its graffiti a plea. Turn back. Those who ignore it risk joining the Reynolds family, trapped in an endless cycle of fire and fear. That one's enough to keep you up at night, isn't it? Have you ever visited a haunted bridge or road, felt a chill you couldn't explain, or heard sounds that weren't there? Share your story in the comments. We're dying to hear it, and your tale might inspire our next video. We're heading to Story 4, and it's absolutely bone-chilling, so don't go anywhere. Give this video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and let's keep the nightmares rolling. Story 4. The Man in the Headlights. Our fourth story takes us to a treacherous mountain pass in Colorado, where winter storms turn roads into death traps and visibility drops to zero. In December 2019, Rachel Bennett, a nurse from Denver, was driving home after a grueling 16-hour shift at St. Anthony Hospital. She'd worked through a flu outbreak, comforting patients, holding hands, and dodging her own exhaustion, her only goal to get home to her two kids, Ben and Sophie, who were staying with their grandmother. The blizzard was relentless, snow falling in thick sheets, the wind howling like a living thing. Rachel was used to tough drives, but this storm was different. Darker, heavier, as if the mountain itself was angry. She didn't know something else was waiting for her on that icy road. Something that wasn't human, something that had been watching the pass for decades. He stood there, dead center in the road, staring at her car through the blizzard's whiteout. Rachel slammed on the brakes, her tires skidding on the ice, the car fishtailing dangerously close to the cliff's edge. Her heart raced as she honked, the sound muffled by the storm, and shouted through her window, "Get out of the way! Move!" But he didn't flinch, didn't even twitch. His head tilted, an unnatural, predatory motion, like he was studying her, sizing her up, deciding her fate. She couldn't see his face, but something about him felt wrong, like he didn't belong in the world of the living, like he was a shadow cast by something darker. Rachel swerved, her car fishtailing again, the rear bumper scraping the guardrail, inches from a 200-foot drop. When she looked back, he was gone, swallowed by the storm as if he'd never been there. Shaking, she gripped the wheel, her breath fogging in the freezing cab, her hands numb from the cold and fear. She kept driving, her eyes scanning the road, her heart pounding, telling herself it was a trick of the light, a hallucination from exhaustion. But her headlights caught him again, standing in the road, closer now, his grin wider, his eyeless face clearer, the snow parting around him like he repelled it. She screamed, swerving again, her tires screeching, the car rocking. On the icy road, this happened 5 times. Each time he was closer, his grin splitting further, his long fingers reaching for the car, until she could hear his rasping breath, like sandpaper, right outside her window, scratching at her mind. Something pounded, on the roof, hard enough to dent the metal, each blow shaking the car, rattling the windows until they threatened to shatter. Rachel prayed, clutching a cross necklace her kids had given her voice breaking, her prayers mixing with sobs. The banging grew louder, faster, a relentless assault, as if the car was surrounded, trapped in a cage of unseen hands. The air grew colder, the frost on the windshield thickening, forming shapes, handprints, faces, eyes that melted and reformed. Rachel screamed for her kids, for God, for anyone, her voice lost in the storm. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The silence was worse, deafening, oppressive, like the calm before a predator strikes, the mountain holding its breath. Rachel made it home just before dawn, her car battered, her body trembling, her mind frayed. She collapsed in her mother's arms, sobbing, unable to explain what she'd seen. She quit her job, sold her car, and moved to Arizona, far from the mountains, where the sun burns away the shadows. She refuses to drive at night, locking her doors at dusk, her kids confused but obedient. She saw a therapist who diagnosed PTSD, but Rachel knows it's more. Something followed her, something that watches from the dark. Locals call him the Watcher, a spirit of a drifter who froze in the pass in the 1920s, his body found clutching a tattered coat, his face frozen in a grin. They say he hunts drivers, feeding on their fear, never letting them go. The pass is still there, winding, through Colorado's mountains, its curves hidden by snow, its shadows deeper than they should be. Drivers report strange figures in their headlights, motionless, eyeless, grinning, but few stop to look closer, and fewer tell their stories. Rachel's tale is a warning. Some roads are graves, and some graves don't stay closed. If you're ever in a Colorado blizzard and you see a man in the road, don't stop, don't look, just drive, and pray he doesn't follow you home. We're almost at the end, but the final story is the scariest yet. A tale that'll make you question every shadow, every sound. If you're still here, you're braver than most, and we salute you. Smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and let's finish this nightmare ride together. Drop your creepiest road story in the comments, and let's see who's faced something like Rachel. Ready for the finale? Let's go. Story 5. The Highway That Eats People. Our final story takes us to an unnamed highway in Oregon, a road so feared that locals refused to give it a name, calling it simply the road. It's a forgotten path through the Cascades, a shortcut known only to a few, avoided by most. In June 2022, Mark and Lisa Coleman, along with their 8-year-old daughter Chloe, took it as a shortcut to a camping trip in the mountains, hoping to make memories under the stars. They expected a quiet drive, a chance to unplug, to reconnect. Instead, they found a nightmare that would break their family, silence their daughter, and leave them running from shadows that never stopped chasing. The GPS started acting strange, recalculating every few minutes, leading them deeper into the forest, away from their destination. The radio crackled with static, mixed with faint, unintelligible whispers, like voices speaking a language they couldn't understand. Lisa noticed the trees seemed wrong, their branches moving when she wasn't looking, curling toward the road like fingers, their bark glistening as if wet. The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of moss, decay, and something metallic, like blood. Chloe, usually chatty, went quiet, staring out the window, her crayons untouched. "There's people out there," she whispered, pointing at the woods, her voice trembling. Mark laughed it off, his smile forced, but his eyes flicked to the trees, where faint, shadowy shapes moved, too tall, too thin, vanishing when he blinked. The van's engine sputtered and died, leaving them stranded in the dark, the silence deafening, broken only by the creak of branches and Chloe's soft whimpers. The air grew thick, oppressive, pressing down on their chests, making it hard to breathe. The temperature dropped, frost creeping across the windows despite the summer heat, forming shapes, eyes, hands, faces that watched them. Then they saw the figures, tall, impossibly thin, their limbs bending like branches, their bodies stretching to unnatural heights. They had no faces, just smooth, blank skin where eyes and mouths should be, their surfaces glistening like wet clay. They moved silently, surrounding the van, their fingers scraping the glass with a sound like knives, slow and deliberate, savoring the family's fear. Mark locked the doors, but the handles rattled, as if the figures were testing them. Trying to get in, Lisa screamed, shielding Chloe, who clutched her rabbit, her eyes squeezed shut, her lips moving in silent prayer. The whispers grew louder, forming words they couldn't understand, a language ancient and wrong, vibrating in their skulls. The van shook, rocked by unseen hands, the metal groaning under the pressure, the windows cracking under the figure's touch. Mark shouted, banging on the dashboard, but the engine was dead, the GPS blank, the forest closing in. The figures leaned closer, their blank faces inches from the glass, their bodies bending unnaturally, folding like paper, their limbs stretching to wrap around the van. The family prayed, eyes shut, clutching each other, their voices a desperate chorus against the dark. They don't know how long they sat there, hours or minutes, time warped by fear. When they opened their eyes, dawn's light filtered through the trees, the figures gone, the forest silent. The van started, its engine coughing to life, and they fled, the trees parting as if reluctant to let them go. They made it home, but they were changed, broken. Chloe hasn't spoken since, communicating only through drawings, sketches of tall, faceless figures, their blank faces watching from every page. Mark sees them in his nightmares, standing at the edge of his vision, their fingers reaching. Lisa burned their camping gear, refusing to return to the outdoors, her sleep plagued by whispers she can't understand. The Colemans moved to Idaho, hoping distance would save them, but the shadows followed. Mark returned to the road once, seeking answers, but found only silence. The forest denser, the road narrower, as if it had changed to keep its secrets. Locals say the road is alive, a predator that lures travelers with promises of shortcuts, feeding on their fear, their hope, their souls. Native legends speak of a spirit older than the trees, a hunger that wears blank faces to hide its true form. Those who escape are never whole, their minds scarred, their lives haunted. The road is still out there, winding through Oregon's forests, its asphalt cracked, its trees watching. If you find it, turn back. Some shortcuts lead to places you can't return from, and there you have it. 5 scary true highway horror stories that will haunt you forever. These aren't just tales to spook you on a dark night. They're real, lived by people like you and me, people who faced the unexplainable and survived to warn us. From the Phantom Passenger, forever hitching rides on Route 66, to the vanishing car that hunts Route 50's lonely stretches, to the screaming bridge where a family's agony echoes, to the watcher who stalks Colorado's snowy passes, and finally, the road in Oregon, a predator that devours those who stray too far. These stories prove the open road can be a place of terror, where the line between reality and nightmare blurs, where the shadows have eyes and the silence screams. These highways are more than asphalt. They're graves, memories, curses, and they're still out there, waiting for the next driver, the next victim, the next story. What's the creepiest thing you've seen on the road? A figure that vanished? A car that shouldn't be there? A sound that followed you home? Drop it in the comments below and let's keep the chills going. We read every story, and the best ones might inspire our next video. You've made it through 4 hours of pure terror, and that makes you part of our community, a survivor of the dark. If you loved this journey, give it a massive thumbs up. Share it with your friends, your family, anyone who loves a good scare, and subscribe with that bell icon so you never miss a nightmare. We're already working on our next video, and trust me, it's going to be even scarier, so stay tuned. But before you go, a final warning. The road is never as safe as it seems. Every highway has its secrets, its ghosts, its hungers. The next time you're driving at night, check your mirrors, lock your doors, and keep your eyes on the road. Because out there in the dark, something's watching. Something's waiting, and it knows your name. Stay safe, and don't look back.